husband Aiden and I love to hike and travel. So when it came down to picking a place to settle down, we decided to move to Colorado because we fell in love with this beautiful scenery. During our move, we stayed in the cabin for a few months while we looked for the perfect home. We wanted to build a homestead that would be self-sufficient. We eventually found a nice fixer-upper that's on 200 acres of land. It was perfect for us. It took us a little over a month to finalize all of the paperwork, but the process was really simple. We moved in during the beginning of summer, so the heat made moving more difficult. I remember both of us being pretty exhausted each day of the move. It took us about a week to move in completely. During the last day of the move, we laid on the rug in the middle of our cluttered living room, excited about everything. Aiden then mentioned that we should go on a hike the next morning to get to know the layout of our property better. I mentioned how we need to be extra careful now since there could be bears in the area. Aiden agreed and went out later that day to buy some bear spray for the hike the next morning. While Aiden went out shopping, I went around the house and started to take notes for renovation ideas. Most of the rooms in the house needed a lot of work. I was more concerned about the third bathroom towards the back of the house, so I headed there first. But on my way there, I heard something that sounded like footsteps in the living room. I thought Aiden was back and wanted to try to scare me. But when I slowly started to crawl backwards to the living room to scare him first, I saw a naked woman standing in the hallway, holding one of our vases and admiring it. This caught me off guard and I yelled, "Hey! What are you doing?" I got a bit scared and ducked behind the wall, but the sound of the vase falling and shattering to the ground scared me, and I looked back around the corner and she was gone. It was like she was never there. I looked around for her and still nothing. I must have been seeing things. I started to clean up the mess, and as I opened the front door to take the trash out, a huge rat ran past my foot and ran outside. But I brushed it off and I double checked all the doors to make sure everything was locked and went back to taking notes. I started by making a note that we needed a new toilet as soon as possible. The sink needed to be replaced as well since it was leaking from the sides. New tiles for the walls and adding tile for the floor as well. The whole damn bathroom needed to be remodeled. I started to check the walls, and as I looked up towards the ceiling, I noticed something that was kind of like a crack in the ceiling. I went to check it out a little bit closer, and the whole ceiling caved in onto me. Something must have hit my head pretty hard because everything went blank after that. When I came to, I was in the hospital and Aiden was sitting next to me. I heard a woman's voice asking if I was okay. It was a doctor. I told her that I was okay and started to get up with a terrible headache. A nurse came in to check up on me to make sure that I was okay. Aiden helped me up and fixed the pillow behind me. The doctor started speaking to me and said that I had a mild concussion. I broke my middle finger and my ring finger on my left hand, and the cut on my forehead had to get stitched up. I was told to take it easy for the next few days. She prescribed me with some pain medication and migraine medication to help me cope with the headaches and pain. I was discharged from the hospital a couple hours later. On our drive home, Aiden told me that when he came home, he called out for me and didn't get an answer and started to look for me. He looked around the house and didn't see me. He said that he heard a woman's voice call out and said, "She's in here." He said that he saw the front door swing open. No one was in the house. He started to panic and rushed through the house looking for me again. He eventually found the ceiling caved in and saw my body underneath the debris. I started making jokes that he was seeing stuff like me, and I told him what I saw earlier. We started to joke that the house might be haunted and that we needed to purify it later that afternoon. As we were making the turn to get onto the dirt road that started on our property line, a small black car rushed past us, almost colliding with our truck, and they sped off as fast as they could. Aiden had to brake pretty fast. This caused my head to bang against the passenger side window. We thought that maybe joyriding teenagers were very curious about the new owners of the house, and that they just didn't want to get caught. We brushed it off and went home. I went straight to bed after taking my medicine, but I later woke up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. As I turned towards the hallway, I saw a bright light lighting up the house. As my eyes adjusted to the darkness and the light at the same time, I noticed that someone with a flashlight was peering inside the house from the kitchen door. I yelled out, "Hey, get out of here. Aiden, someone is trying to break into the house through the kitchen." I must have scared him as the flashlight fell to the ground. Aiden quickly got up, grabbing the baseball bat by our bed and ran towards the kitchen door, swinging it, opening it rapidly. I started following him and saw that the flashlight was still on the ground by the door. I picked it up and started looking around with it. I saw nothing the first time I looked around, but I started to feel as if somebody was watching me. I saw a large mountain goat standing near the car, as if it was trying to hide from us, and it kept its gaze at me. I yelled out to Aiden that the person ran off and left their flashlight. I looked at him and pointed in the direction of the car to show him the mountain goat, but it was gone. Aiden looked at me and laughed, saying that mountain goats aren't this close to humans and they stay up near the mountains. I wanted to prove it, so I walked towards the car and shined the flashlight near the ground, showing him the hooves prints on the ground. We tried to follow them, but they ended up disappearing in a few steps. Aiden said maybe someone was playing a prank on us. Aiden started to move me back inside. We locked up. I ended up using the bathroom finally, and we tried going back to sleep. Aiden fell asleep pretty fast while I struggled a bit. I woke up to Aiden making a whole lot of noise as he was cleaning the mess in the bathroom. He didn't want to go hiking anymore. He said after what happened yesterday, he wanted me to rest, but I insisted that some fresh air would do me some good. After I persisted for a few minutes, he reluctantly agreed. He mentioned that we'd only be gone for a couple of hours. Before we left, I took my medicine with me, and we made sure that we had bear spray with us. Our hike started out perfectly. We saw a few animals, and the sound of nature was just beyond peaceful. We walked for about 40 to 50 minutes when we started getting closer to the hill on the property. Right as we made it past the first hill, everything went silent. We couldn't hear anything for a while. The silence was broken after the sound of bears started to come closer. We were both excited and rushed up the hill. We had to go over a second hill so we could see the clearing. When we made it up the hill, we looked over and saw 4 bears walking pretty close. 2 adults and 2 cubs. This was weird since one of them was definitely a mother bear. Mother bears tend to keep other bears away from their babies, so we couldn't quite understand what was going on. But we were really interested. But we started taking pictures and recording for a few seconds when they're together. We laid down on the ground so we could get a little bit more comfortable to continue to observe them. I started to feel something coming up my leg. When I looked down, I noticed that it was a snake. I started to scream. Aiden quickly covered my mouth with his hand and just stared at me. He whispered, "Are you trying to get us killed?" until he noticed the snake. To calm me down, he told me that the snake wasn't on me anymore. But I still felt uncomfortable and looked back, and I saw that the snake was looking at us and not moving. It was staring at us like the mountain goat did last night. It was as though it was watching us. Aiden broke my concentration and told me to look down the hill. The bears were gone. We couldn't understand how they disappeared so fast. There was nowhere that they could have gone. There weren't any trees or anything that they could hide behind. When we started to get up, Aiden jumped back and yelled, "Oh, what the hell? It's still there." I followed his gaze to see that the snake was still there. It started to move closer and closer, observing us. Aiden pulled out his bear spray. I laughed at him and mentioned I don't believe that bear spray is going to work on a snake, but the snake seemed to have stopped moving and started to back away from us. But it kept its gaze until we couldn't see it anymore. Aiden laughed and said that the animals in the area are pretty different and very interesting. I agreed, and I told him that they were pretty much watching us, which was kind of weird. As we started walking, Aiden mentioned how the snake was moving in an awkward way. He pointed out that it moved like it was walking and gliding at the same time, but it didn't slither like snakes normally do. I didn't notice any of that. I was more focused on the fact that it behaved like it knew what we were saying and was actually watching us. Our conversation was cut short by the sound of a bear. We looked around and we noticed that a bear from a distance was running towards us up the hill. A loud gunshot echoed in the air. The bear tumbled a bit and landed a few feet in front of us. Aiden and I started to head towards the bear. We were scared and upset. We didn't understand why anybody would be shooting on our property. Another gunshot rang through the air and landed in between us as we were moving towards the bear. We stopped. We thought that the person couldn't see us clearly, and we yelled for them to stop. A figure started to appear in front of us. It was a man. He started pointing his rifle at us and he shot again. This time he almost caught me in the leg. I jumped back, bumping into Aiden. This caused Aiden to lose his balance and he started to slip down the hill. I tried to hold on to him as he tried holding on to me to catch his balance, but he ended up dragging me down with him. We tumbled down the hill for a while until I landed right on top of him. When we looked up, we saw that the man was standing on top of the hill and he shot at the bear close range. The man started to scream at an angry tone at us. "Next time, don't try to steal my target, or are you one of them too?" I yelled back that he was fucking crazy and that he was trespassing on our property. My response was met with another gunshot as the man continued to shoot at us. Aiden pulled me up against part of the hill under some kind of stone coverage, and the man continued yelling. We're going to get people to see the truth about these things. You two are not going to get in the way. We didn't understand what the hell he was talking about. The man started to yell, "Stay back." I thought he was talking to us, so we didn't move. Some type of monstrous sound came from above. The man shot twice before he started screaming in agony. Served him right, I thought. But when his body came flying down violently short after, I became very terrified. Aiden and I started to talk about different ways of escaping. Suddenly, a woman's voice yelled down at us, "You both should get out of here now." We stepped out into the clearing and got a better view of the man's mangled and torn body. We looked around and there was nobody there. We heard somebody. I'm sure we heard somebody. Aiden leaned up against me. I thought he was trying to help me up, but I ended up having to hold him. He said that he sprained his right ankle. I held onto him as we started to head back up the hill towards the house. As we made it up the hill to the same position, there was nothing there. We didn't see the bear's body. There weren't any tracks of the bear to follow, so that we could avoid it going back home. But as we started to move forward, the same snake appeared again, this time being more aggressive than before. It was forcing us to move down the hill much faster than we were before. The snake was now out of view, and it didn't follow us past the hill. Aiden's ankle was in so much pain that he tried to push me off and get me to leave him behind. He mentioned that the pain was getting worse and that he couldn't continue much longer. I had to yell at him and told him to stop being stupid. We kept walking until we got close to the house. The closer we got, we noticed that a black car was parked next to our truck. A man was knocking on the door and looking through the living room window. This was strange, but I called out for help to him anyways. The man turned around and quickly he looked at us for a while before he started running towards us. He looked like he was in his late 30s in hunter's gear. He came over to help me with getting Aiden inside the house. The man started to apologize about being on the property. He said that he thought that the house was still abandoned, but when he saw the truck, he knew that it wasn't anymore. He mentioned that him and his brother normally on the property messing around because no one lived on it anymore. I asked where his brother was, and he told us in a nonchalant way that his brother was already on the property. I became a bit irritated, and I told him that he should be careful. The man replied quickly with, "My brother has a gun. He'll be fine. We do this all the time." I pointed out, why did he even bother asking for permission since he was already on the property? He only mentioned that he didn't want any problems and that he wanted to make sure that we knew that they were there, but that they wouldn't be doing this anymore. He gave us a forced smile and started to get up to leave. I started looking for my phone and I couldn't find it. I quietly asked Aiden to look in his pocket for his, and he didn't find his either. I can't freaking believe that we lost our phones during the fall. I should have thought about it. We should have looked for them. I started kicking myself about it, but I didn't want the man to see us worried. So I simply smiled at him and told him that he should find his brother before it gets too dark and leave. As he got to the door, he mentioned that I should be more focused on taking my husband to the hospital. I locked the door behind him and looked at the people and saw that he was staring at the house for a while sitting in his car. He didn't drive off for a few minutes, but when he did, I went back to help Aiden. His ankle was swollen purple and tender to the touch. After seeing this, we decided to head to the hospital. At the hospital, we contacted the police and told them what happened. Aiden had to stay overnight at the hospital. A nurse woke me up the next morning to let me know that a police officer wanted to talk to me. The officer just told me that they went to our home and checked the property and they didn't find anything. The officer said to call and notify them if anything else came up. Aiden was loaded with pain medicine and strong antibiotics. When he got discharged, we went home and got settled for the night. The house was quiet, nothing was out of place, and the house was secure. We went to bed and decided that we would call a security company to come and install a system the next day. Aiden fell asleep pretty fast because of his medicine. I stayed up a bit worried, but eventually dozed off a bit. We were both woken up with loud gunshots coming through the walls of the house. A familiar man's voice started yelling from outside. We couldn't understand what he was saying. Aiden wasn't able to walk that well, and he was still a bit dazed from his medicine. I got up and moved us to the bathroom. I placed him inside of the bathtub in a panic and went back to look for our phones, only to remember we lost them earlier. The man then started to bang on the door, eventually kicking it in. We were both vulnerable, and we had nowhere else to go. All I could have done at the time is hold my legs up against the bathroom door to hold it close. The man shot some more into the house, some bullets going right through our bathroom wall. Aiden started to become more alert, and he suddenly yelled to the man that we call the police. If the man didn't know where we were before, Aiden made sure that he knew now. The man's footsteps started to speed up and eventually stopped in the bedroom. I whispered to Aiden to shut up. We heard the man moving around the bedroom looking for us. He yelled, "I know you're one of those things. You can't fool me. You turn into whatever you want. I won't let you go." He sounded just like the man that shot at us earlier. He made it towards the bathroom and started to shake the doorknob violently. He started laughing and we heard him doing something outside the door. He took a loud, deep breath and said, very calmly, "You pieces of shits killed my brother. I saw his body. I saw your kind dragging him away. I will give you a chance to apologize before I kill you both." We couldn't believe what we were hearing. We didn't know what the hell he was going on about. I yelled that we didn't have anything to do with anyone being killed. Aiden yelled out that the cops were on their way again. The man started laughing and said, "I know you don't have a phone. I found your phone scattered around the area of my brother's death. You left it behind after killing him, didn't you?" Both Aiden and I were shocked and understood why the voice sounded so familiar. This was the man from earlier. The man yelled, "Open the door now. Now that I have you two, people will believe me when I said you things are changing into animals. I've been telling people about your kind for so long, and nobody believed me except my brother. Now you've taken him away from me. Open the fucking door." The man shot off the doorknob and started ramming into the door. I held it with my legs the best I could, using the bathtub to stop me from moving backwards. The man started grunting and screaming like a rabid animal. He shot some more through the bathroom door. That time I got hit in the stomach. The pain was too much that I started to lose my footing on the door, which allowed the man to be able to push it open a bit. Aiden leaped out of the tub, slamming against the door and causing the man to fall backwards. Aiden moved me out of the way and swung the door open, ready for a confrontation. This was stupid of him. He was putting us both at risk. He was freaking limping, and we didn't even have a weapon to defend ourselves. And now that I was injured, as Aiden started to make his way towards the guy, two large bears ran past him and tackled the man back down as he was getting up and started to attack him. Aiden moved back slowly. A third bear slowly walked inside the bedroom and looked in our direction. Aiden hurried back and slammed the door closed in panic. We couldn't understand why the bears were appearing everywhere now. Aiden was shaking and he was a bit confused. I could tell the medicine was making it hard for him to concentrate. We could hear the screams outside the door. The man was screaming for help. After a while, his screams went silent. We heard movement and footsteps in the bedroom. The silence was broken by a familiar woman's voice, telling us that we were safe and that we could come out now. Aiden yelled that how could we be sure that she wasn't with him? The woman laughed and said that she wasn't. She said we trusted her the day before, so why won't we do it now? She opened up the door completely. We could see that a woman was standing there naked in front of the door. We could barely see her face, as her long black hair covered most of it up. She told us to go and get help, and that the bears were gone. She looked like the woman I saw in the house earlier. I mentioned this to Aiden, and all the woman did was look at us and say I'm sorry about that. Aiden helped me up, and we started to move out of the bedroom. There was another naked woman there, standing in the doorway, covered in blood. The woman said to us that they would contact the police. We didn't give it a second thought as I needed the hospital quickly. As we made it outside, there were different kinds of animals just standing outside, staring at us and watching us leave. The snake was there too. Aiden got me into the truck, and as we drove away, I looked back. I saw that all the animals were gone. There were just a bunch of people just watching us in the driveway. I motioned to Aiden to look back. He just said, "I know," and continued to drive. Aiden had a hard time driving since he was still a bit drowsy. We were both confused and didn't understand what was going on. I had to stay in the hospital for over 2 weeks after my surgery. Again, officers said that they found nothing in the house. The house was chaotic, but they didn't find blood or any injured person in the house. They thought that we were making things up. One officer, though, came back in and said that we needed to be careful and be respectful of the animals in the area. This made us a little bit uneasy. I told the officer if those people didn't show up, I don't know what would have happened. He looked at us and said we were lucky. We're not seen as a threat and that we should keep it that way. And he left. We have installed a security system in the house since then, and nothing bad has happened. We do occasionally see some animals and people walking around the property. We don't think much of it, and we don't question it much anymore. It's becoming our new normal. Hey guys, I'd like to thank you for listening to this story, and if you enjoyed it, please subscribe, click the notification bell, and like this video. Thank you again for watching.